Hi everyone, my name's Ava and I'm a third year PhD student at UCL. So I thought I'd talk a bit about what motivated me to do a PhD, what I'm currently doing within my PhD on mental health, as well as this Yale exchange program that I'm currently on. So firstly, why I wanted to do a PhD. So my personal family experience of trauma psychosis made me very much interested in trying to understand the relationships and underlying mechanism behind trauma and psychosis. So I thought to undertake a PhD looking at how memory processing might underlie the relationship between childhood trauma and psychosis. So my specific PhD looks into how memory processing underlies the relationship between trauma and psychosis. So when we experience a traumatic event, we're more likely to process the emotional aspects of the memory and less likely to process the context behind it, which is why some people may then experience PTSD like flashbacks and intrusive memories where they experience the event out of the context of how it occurred. So they're more likely to experience it in the here and now and less likely to experience the context of that memory. So some individuals may also experience hallucinations which have the content of the trauma that they've experienced. So I'm interested in how processing this trauma may make some individuals experience psychotic symptoms, PTSD symptoms, or both. I was very much also interested in gaining skills in a multitude of different areas, which is why I ended up undertaking 5 studies that included qualitative data, neuroimaging, as well as epidemiology. So during my PhD, I undertook a meta-analysis where I reviewed all the literature understanding the relationship between trauma and psychosis in terms of memory performance. And I also undertook an epidemiological study that looked at the relationship between PTSD, complex PTSD, and psychosis. Within this was a multi-site study where we recruited individuals from both the UK and Republic of Korea, which meant that we were able to generalize the findings from this study to a larger population of different cultures. So within this study, I investigated whether PTSD severity predicted psychotic symptom severity. Other studies that I've also done include a neuroimaging study investigating whether volume reduction in areas relating to memory processing underlies the relationship between trauma and psychosis. I also undertook qualitative interviews where I recruited individuals who were at ultra high risk of psychosis, who had also been exposed to developmental trauma, in order to understand the content of the intrusions they were experiencing, which would be flashbacks of the event, and whether this was in relation to the psychotic symptoms they also had, if the content was the same, and to see what the relationship would be from a qualitative perspective. I am also currently recruiting individuals online for memory tasks in order to understand whether memory performance on these online tasks underlies the relationship between developmental trauma and psychosis. I really wanted to do these 5 studies in order to try and gain multidisciplinary skills and also to bridge the gap between different groups that had different specialties, from neuroimaging to qualitative analysis. I think it's important to understand the relationship between developmental trauma and psychosis from multiple perspectives and bridge the gaps between different research groups. I'm hoping that my results have various clinical implications, for example, in understanding the relationship between developmental trauma and psychosis, we can understand what interventions might be more personalised and more effective in those who have been exposed to trauma with psychotic symptoms. For example, whether medications that tap into specific brain regions relating to memory, or whether psychological interventions specifically focusing on memory processing could be more effective in those with trauma and psychosis. So lastly, I'm on an exchange program with Yale, which is offered by UCL to all PhD students, where I'm undergoing another neuroimaging study, gaining skills in fMRI to understand how brain activation in these memory processing regions are associated with psychosis and trauma. I am currently in front of my psychology building, which is where I currently work and have been for 2 months. I've very much enjoyed so far my exchange, as I've been able to gain a lot of skills and also collaborate with different research groups and present my findings. UCL also provides a scholarship which you can use in order to gain funding for this exchange. And exchanges are usually around 3 months, however mine is 2 months as I'm doing it in my third year of my PhD and also one time to write up my thesis. The Yale campus is beautiful and I've definitely been able to appreciate New Haven. My future plans currently is that I'm going to Toronto to present some of my findings in the Schizophrenia International Research Conference, which I'm very much looking forward to. I hope this gave you a bit of an understanding into the specific opportunities that UCL can bring if you do a PhD in the Division of Psychiatry, as well as my personal experience of my PhD so far. Thank you for watching.